Hi there, this is Pastor Phil Vickers coming to you with another short devotion. I was watching a cute little video on YouTube just the other day about the worst towns in Mississippi. As many of you know, that's where my wife and I are from. She's from a town called Jackson, and I'm from out in the country in between Grenada and Greenwood, Mississippi. And this video was exploring, some of these little towns that have some real struggles economically, and folks there without much of an opportunity to find work, exploring some of the hardships that these little country towns go through. One of the things that the person putting together the video explored, though, was that one of the things that's interesting about some of those towns is that although they have a high incidence of poverty, they have a low incidence of crime, which is unusual and different from other places, because often when you find a place that's experiencing poverty, there's crime that comes along with it. But this individual is pointing out that it's interesting that in these little places in the South that wasn't necessarily the case, that those places that experience poverty didn't necessarily have the crime that usually comes along with it. And I can sort of see that thinking back to living there. Not that I'm trumping up Mississippi as the best place in the world, of course. I'm a bit partial to it myself, but I did experience, as I lived there, the fact that there were folks that didn't have a lot, but also they were content with what they had. And that can happen anywhere, but I've seen it for myself back in my home state. You might have a person living in a mobile home without a job that makes a whole lot of money from a certain perspective, but that they don't feel like they need much else than that, and they're content and they're happy, and they don't feel the need for trying to get a whole lot more. And that's an interesting thing to see, and it's interesting to think about that as it relates to our lives. And there's a passage in this book I wanted to show you. This is Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. Now, Eckhart is not exactly a Christian. He's more of a spiritual teacher that brings in teachings from Jesus, but also Buddha and other world traditions. But I really like how he talks about some of the teachings of Jesus. I think he really understands some of those teachings and explains them well. One of his big things is talking about the ego and how that can harm us and make our lives less than it should be. And when he talks about the ego, he's talking about that part of us that struggles to attach to certain things in our lives to build meaning where maybe there shouldn't be meaning. Like, he has this chapter where he's talking about wanting, and it's called The Need for More. I'm going to read this to you right now. The ego identifies with having, but its satisfaction in having is a relatively shallow and short-lived one. Concealed within it remains a deep-seated sense of dissatisfaction, of incompleteness, of not enough. I don't have enough yet, by which the ego really means I am not enough yet. As we have seen, having, the concept of ownership, is a fiction created by the ego to give itself permanency and make itself stand out, make itself special. Since you cannot find yourself through having, however, there is another more powerful drive underneath it that pertains to the structure of the ego, the need for more, which we could also call wanting. No ego can last for long without the need for more. Therefore, wanting keeps the ego alive much more than having. The ego wants to want more than it wants to have. That's a very interesting way to phrase that. And so the shallow satisfaction of having is always replaced by more wanting. This is the psychological need for more, that is to say, more things to identify with. It is an addictive need, not an authentic one. Some egos know what they want and pursue their aim with grim and ruthless determination. Genghis Khan, Stalin, Hitler, to give just a few larger-than-life examples. The energy behind their wanting, however, creates an opposing energy of equal intensity that in the end leads to their downfall. In the meantime, they make themselves and many others unhappy, or in the larger than life examples, create hell on earth. Most egos have conflicting wants. They want different things at different times, or may not even know what they want, except that they don't want what is the present moment. Unease, restlessness, boredom, anxiety, dissatisfaction are the results of unfulfilled wanting. Wanting is structural, and no amount of content can provide lasting fulfillment as long as that mental structure remains in place. Intense wanting that has no specific object can be found in the still developing ego of teenagers, some of whom are in a permanent state of negativity and dissatisfaction. The physical needs for food, water, shelter, clothing, and basic comforts could be easily met for all humans on the planet were it not for the imbalance of resources created by the insane need for more, the greed of the ego. It finds collective expression in the economic structures of this world, such as the huge corporations, which are egoic entities that compete with each other for more. Their only aim is blind profit. They pursue that aim with absolute ruthlessness. Nature, animals, people, even their own employees are no more than digits on a balance sheet, lifeless objects to be used and discarded. The thought forms of me and mine, of more than, of I want, I need, I must have, and of not enough pertain not to content but to the structure of the ego. The content is interchangeable. As long as you don't recognize those thought forms within yourself, as long as they remain unconscious, you will believe in what they say. You will be condemned to acting out those unconscious thoughts, condemned to seeking and not finding, because when those thought forms operate, no possession, place, person, or condition will ever satisfy you. No content will satisfy you as long as the structure remains in place. No matter what you have or get, you won't be happy. You will always be looking for something else that promises greater fulfillment, that promises to make your incomplete sense of self complete and fill that sense of lack you feel within. I just think that's a wonderful way to explain some of the things we see in the world and all this dissatisfaction and all this unrest and unease that we see being played out so often is this result of individuals, and sometimes individuals, um, you know, acting together, as in his example of corporations, that are never going to be satisfied because, as he says, it's not even the thing that is wanted. It is the fact that these people have this deep sense of lack within. It's been said that we all have a God-shaped void within us, and that we can try to fill that void with possessions, with egoic concerns. These ideas that what we have and what we are in the eyes of the world is going to fulfill us, and it's never going to fulfill us until we recognize that it is God that God alone who can occupy that space within us that will bring a sense of fulfillment and of peace. So I've been reflecting on that today. That video I watched about the folks out in the country that don't have much and don't need much triggered these thoughts, but it got me thinking of a more bigger picture and of how we might reflect on what are some of the ways that dissatisfaction is disrupting our lives. When we feel dissatisfaction and unease, what are we really trying to get? What is a better way to say it is, what might we learn about ourselves from our dissatisfaction? If you're feeling dissatisfied and ill at ease, what are you trying to get? What is your goal? And how might you step back and pursue a sense of thankfulness for what is, a sense of joy over the present moment, rather than putting joy out in the future for some accomplishment that you don't have, something you don't have yet but you might have. That's not to say we shouldn't have goals and we shouldn't have direction, but if our sense of joy and completeness and satisfaction is always being pushed out into some imaginary future, that means now, today, is never going to be good enough. And of course, I'm pointing a finger back to myself in here too. I am not perfect at this, nor am I very good at it, but I am prayerfully trying to get better and be thankful for what is, be thankful for what we do have, and find joy in the current day, in the moment, and right now. So, thank you for listening. We're looking forward to our book study that's coming up. The first 3 Sundays in August at 3 p.m. We're going to be having a Zoom book study on the book Dear Church. So if you'd like to participate in that and get the Zoom link, please let us know. And as always, thank you for your support of the church, and thank you for listening.